Okay, good evening, everyone. Today is April 26, 2022. We are starting our meeting tonight at 6:12 and entertain a motion to go back into session on our budget review. Motion made by Mrs. Carpenter, seconded by Mr. Olympio. All in favor? Excellent. So now, I know we have some new items. Dr. Vidal, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So at our last meeting, we brought forth a proposed budget, a working budget that we're currently operating off of, which is $83,106,902. So there are no changes to that budget packet from the last meeting. I did provide a memo to the committee. So this packet includes our proposed budget that was presented on April 12th, 2022, as well as an addendum with the outlined items that were moved from the initial budget that we proposed into ESSER 3. And I did want to address, there were 4 major items that the committee brought up as questions. Have reviewed those and want to just have a further discussion on this. So the first one was the issue of paraprofessionals. We did look at our current staffing numbers and what we can adjust in the proposed budget. And with the blessing of the committee, I'd like to move forward with adding 3 additional paras at the McCarthy Integrated Preschool and to continue to look at our current staffing levels. So that would go into the appropriated budget. There was discussion about support at the high school around potentially adding some building access attendants to help with lunch coverages and monitoring the hallways and just being a presence in the school, as well as being able to give some assistance with bathroom duties. So you'll see an addition of 2 building access attendants at the high school as a proposal here. We did have some discussions about athletics, coaches, and supplies. I've worked with our athletic director, Mr. DeRoches, and we've identified all the salaries that we're currently having and where they are in the budget, as well as the equipment and the team requests. So at this time, we do feel as though those can be met within the current budget, and so what I'd like to do is develop a proposal for you for what is clearly in the budget that we currently have for the appropriated budget, and then also be able to communicate with the committee what is going into the revolving account, which is where we collect the athletic fees and what will be paid out of that. But between the revolving and the appropriated account, we do feel as though we are sufficiently budgeted in athletics. And then there was a question about elementary class size. So I'm currently working with the principals. There are some small pockets of enrollment increases that we've seen, primarily in the current 3rd grade at the Burke and the Center, as well as the 4th and 5th grade at the Carroll. So I have put together some work that we're doing and working with them. I think that if there are small pockets for 1 year only, we could utilize additional ESSER funds to address that if we needed to add a position. If it's just a pocket where it's sort of an outlier, for example, the Burke School 3rd grade has 51 students in 2 classrooms. Those are co-taught rooms, so there are 25 kids in each class and 2 teachers. So we have, right now it's a 12.5 to 1 ratio. However, 25 is a big number. So if we do see another increase or there are more kids that move into that prior to the end of the school year, I think we'd look at some ESSER funds to add a position to bring that down to a more manageable number. Since that's kind of an outlier, I think ESSER is an important piece to do that. There's recently some communication from DESE about a one-time enrollment increase assistance payment that we can get from DESE. So we're currently working with them and the new business manager as he comes on. That would be a perfect funding source to add a position or 2 at the Center or the Burke or the Carroll if we needed to. So those were kind of the big things that the committee had expressed concerns about or wanted a little bit more information about that we are currently looking at. So our next steps, I'd like to add the pre-K paras and the building access attendants to the appropriated budget for our meeting next week, and make sure we're doing some adjustments with some retirees and things like that, some high-in, low-out numbers, to make sure that the proposed budget will include these items, but maintain the voted budget of $83,106,902. So that's what I would like to bring to the committee for the next meeting, and any questions that the committee has.
Thank you, Dr. Vidal. Do we have any questions at this time? Mr. Olympio.
Thank you, Dr. Vidal. The 3 paras at the McCarthy, are those going to be full-time positions?
We can look at, what we can budget. In addition to these positions, I was thinking part-time positions so that we'd have a morning and an afternoon for those halftime ones. And if we had a full day, classroom, we'd have a morning and afternoon and someone in the middle to do sort of that overlap lunch duty piece. When we get into the full-time paras, it does add an additional amount for our benefits and things like that. So three part-time paras is basically the same budget as 2 full-time paras.
Right, so just my concern is, though, how appealing the part-time position would be to potential applicants. So
Okay.
that's, whether, if we could get 2 full-time paras versus 3 part-time, then, certainly I would prefer, the job to be more appealing to a stronger pool of candidates.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, we will look into that. Thank you.
That's a good suggestion, Mr. Olympio. Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. Just to, on that point that Mr. Olympio made in regards to the paras, I definitely want to look at the full-time positions, especially at the younger grades, because the consistency level there for younger children, that's kind of important, especially some of the jobs that the paras do, the consistency of if you have a child there all day and then they switch up 2 or 3 times between different individuals, that can be kind of disruptive. I know in the past we had done part-time paras, and it was a cost-saving measure in regards to benefits, but I think it's probably time to move away from that practice. I think it would benefit the kids a lot more for the consistency of a full day for them. And then in regards to the salaries of the coaches, I know I had requested some information from you. You had sent me the pay of all of our coaches for the high school. And I think, did you say you're going to bring back more information at the next meeting regarding, because I think I asked for comparisons, and I wanted to discuss how their salaries look. They're not in the contract, so we do need to usually address them during budget time. So just want to make sure that they're addressed each year as everyone else is. So that will be for next meeting.
So we do have I did send a comparison sheet that the Beverly Public Schools provided for us for the Northeast Conference.
You're right, I
as-
didn't
as
print
well
that
as-
one.
As well as our current ones. So we do have that. I think we need to do a little analyzing it.
Yeah.
And we need to look into that a little bit. But we do have what the Northeast Conference coaches make and what we're currently paying our Peabody coaches.
And then I think if we're budgeting, so you had sent over a list of what all the coaches make, their steps. And if we budget according to this list, there are some sports that may have not used all of it as well. So there
Correct.
should be some
Correct.
money left over there that could be used. So we might want to kind of figure that out as well. And then I know we did discuss, we're in the process of discussing the Higgins. This committee had discussed before about enhancing our athletics in the Higgins and making sure coaches are taken care of there as well to feed into our high school. So that was another concern of mine. So I know there was a little bit of confusion because a lot of the kids at the Higgins can play for the Peabody team, which is any Peabody child, but this was about our responsibility of paying for the Higgins team, because they're kind of 2 different teams, right? One city, we're all the same city, but the Higgins out of our budget to pay. So just wanted to get clarification on that and support that program
Yes.
as well.
Yep, so in the Higgins budget, we have that line item for the extracurriculars.
Yes.
Which,
I think it was 700 for intramural, right? Is that
yeah,
what I-
and so the total budget for extracurricular is $17,330. And then we also have an additional $6,300 for intramurals. So we separated the extracurriculars from the intramurals. And so those were removed from the budget in '21. We put them back in for this year, '22, and we have those again for '23.
Okay,
So those are the 2 areas where we have in the budget for those 2 items.
okay.
So we have to get clarity around what is actually being paid
Yeah.
and how many positions there are.
Yeah, I would like to see just some
Yep.
clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Mr. Amico?
Great, thank you. Through the chair, Dr. Vidala, thank you for preparing this for us. I was wondering, to stay on the athletics end of it, I was wondering if we could also get an update on what we'll be potentially budgeting for our boosters. I know they came up with a wish list of items. If we can get a,
So, if I may,
Sure.
in general, we don't budget for the boosters. We have team requests, so the coaches submit requests. So that's what Mr. Drocious and I are doing. So the team has submitted requests, and I think that's what the boosters were talking about, is if we don't fulfill those requests, that's where the boosters pick them up. So we don't give money directly to boosters. We buy the things for the teams that they request through the coaches. So we just want to make sure that they're going through the coaches and they're submitting those items that they would like us to purchase, whether it's equipment. I know, for example, track and field has a big number because they are in need of a discus. I think that there's like a safety thing around the discus net and their setup. So that's a bigger purchase that they typically wouldn't ask for, but that is in there. So we are currently going through all of those, and Mr. Drocious was able to track down all of the requests from the coaches. And in addition, I know we spoke about this last year, he's finally getting a 3-year plan for each team's uniforms. Because there's also teams that seem like they have a little bit more of a request than other teams, and that's a uniform request. And so I want to separate out uniform requests from equipment requests, because I think those are two different things. And again, we're working to figure out what should go in the revolving account, and to me, the revolving account is what the user fees go into, so what do user fees pay for? And again, philosophically, if you're paying a user fee every year, at some point, we should be getting you uniforms out of that user fee, and game officials and things like that. So we're trying to make this as clean as possible and identify that. So we're asking those boosters clubs to work with their coaches and the coaches to submit to the athletic director what they need. And then that way, the boosters can truly be a supplemental organization and not buy equipment that is necessary that we should be funding. So we have identified, what the asks are for the fall and the winter, and then as well as this spring. And we're at the end of this season, he'll get the requests for next spring from this spring's coaches.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Mr. Ackman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Vidala, for the updated budget. And in follow-up to Mr. Amico's question, and I think maybe Ms. Carpenter's as well, are we going to see hard numbers before we're going to be expected to vote on this?
Yes, so that will be included in the detail. So when we do this update, I'll have those details for everyone.
Thank you. And then, just moving down this budget memo, in regard to the paraprofessionals, and thank you, Mr. Olympio, for raising the concern that you did. We always want to hire the best available applicant to be part of our team here at Peabody Public Schools. So broadening that pool to include people who are in need of maybe full-time employment is always a good thing. But I'm looking at the budget book, and I don't know that I see how many paraprofessionals we currently have at the McCarthy School, and I'm sure I'm just looking in the wrong place.
Sorry, I believe it's 11.5 in the budget, and there's additional 3 in the revolving account, and we were proposing to add 3. It's not in here yet. It would probably be under special education, which is page... Page 20, and it is line 17019. So it's at 11.5 now, and there's 3 in the revolving account, so we'd be looking to add additional 3 to bring us up above the number that they were at in FY21. So you see there was a reduction, and part of that was because some of those positions went into the revolving account. And we'd be looking to bring us up above the number that we were at in FY21.
So we're looking to get north of 16.5 FTEs.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, okay, and I do see that we're projecting some additional enrollment for the upcoming year in that pre-K program, so that makes a lot of sense, too. So moving down this list to the building access attendance at the high school, just flesh that out for what that means. I mean, are these people that, are they gonna, is your expectation that these people are gonna be at the front of the door to allow visitors or other people into the building, or are they gonna be monitoring various rooms throughout the building?
So they rotate. Right now, we have one was always stationed at the front to monitor the door, while the other one is able to move throughout the building. And I think increasing by 2 allows, either one per floor, or allows multiple people to be in the cafeteria during lunches, or supporting some of the bathroom duties and things like that. Just having more of a presence, because right now there's only 2 for the entire building, and one is always tied to the front door. So it would be, additional bodies to be able to help support throughout the building.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, if I may. Thank you. So I know that you and I had we kind of had a walkthrough at the high school a while ago through building and grounds preparation for a building and grounds meeting, and we looked at the weight room and the locker rooms and things like that. And I think the locker rooms are still currently not being utilized. And I know that when we did the walkthrough, it was really, we were just getting back to full-time education, and COVID was not, it certainly is still a big issue, but it was a bigger issue then, and that was, I think, part of the rationale for not utilizing the locker rooms. Will these 2 additional building access attendants somehow play into reopening the locker rooms, or are there still some other issues going on there?
I think it's a combination. I think they could be part of a bigger solution there. I also believe that we do need some capital improvements to our locker rooms. So I met with Jim Hafey this morning, and we had talked about sort of a long-term plans for bathrooms and the locker rooms. So if it's a fixture issue, just needing a new fixture, like a new sink or a new toilet to put in, he said it's a pretty easy remedy, and, we could update those. If it is more of a plumbing issue, that's the reason why there's a toilet offline or a sink that's not working, we'd have to get, more of a quote for that. But I think investing some capital funds into, and I think we've talked about this previously, where if we're not using the textbook capital funds for the next few years because we've identified an alternate revenue source, that, a request would be appropriate for capital improvements around bathrooms and in the locker room. I think that would be something, the mayor and I have talked about this. He's, a big supporter of making sure that our athletic programs have access to the bathrooms and the locker rooms, but also our kids during the school day, making sure that they have access to the locker rooms. And I think, it's time now that we're coming back to full capacity to potentially do another walkthrough and really take a look at what does that look like from a capital improvement standpoint.
Yeah, thank you. And I know we might be a little bit beyond the scope of this budget when we talk about the locker rooms, but I would, not that it's completely analogous, but, in this building, before it was this building, we had science classrooms with laboratories that didn't function. And it really detracts from students' ability to learn and teachers' ability to teach that subject area. And physical education teachers have a job to teach our kids, and our kids have an obligation under state law to participate. And it certainly hurts when the students are carrying around sweaty clothes all day because they can't access a locker room, or they're wearing those clothes all day, and it might even harm them socially. And we certainly don't want to do that. So let's maybe make a note that if we need to look at this hardcore over the summer, to make an effort to have those locker rooms open, certainly for the fall, if not before. And if there are some capital issues that we need to address, you're absolutely right, Dr. Vidala. We're very fortunate in this city that we do have a mayor who is supportive of education in all facets, including athletics. So I'm sure we can tackle this, not to put a athletic pun on that. In any event, thank you. And with regard to the number, 83-106-902, are you proposing in this memo that that number doesn't move, but we're going to add these positions? And what are we, or what are you proposing that we've reduced in order to gain this?
So through some attrition, we have some high in, low out items that we identified. In this budget, we increased the health insurance by about $100,000. from the original proposal. So if we need to pull a little bit off of that, we could do that as well. But this is the number that we don't want to move from. This is the number that the city is comfortable with us voting on. And so if there are things that need to go into ESSER, we could do that. I'd prefer to try to do it within our means, because I don't want to tax ESSER too much, because we do have that one more year that we want to have in. So we have identified some recent retirees and things like that that we'll be able to adjust, which will save us some cost savings, that we can add some of these things in that'll be budget neutral.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mr. Swanson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Dr. Vidal. I'm not going to harp on it, but I am going to back up what Mr. Hockman said. And obviously, the bathrooms, the locker rooms are extremely important to the atmosphere within the building we have up in the high school. So I just would like to second what Mr. Hockman is. We can prioritize that for at least over the summer, making sure that we come back to a school that's fully opened. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. In regard to the addition to the 2 building access attendants, before I ask my question, can you clarify, we have 1 building access attendant. Can you tell me how many SROs and security do we have?
Yep, so the security/building access attendants, we have 2 at the high school, and then we have 1 that does the nights. So if we go into the high school budget, you'll see that there's a
So 2 security and
it's
1 access attendant?
so it's 3.8. Three building access attendants. I guess they're all sort of part of the security team, but they're all under the building access attendant line, and the 0.8 is the after-hours one.
Okay. So the building access attendant is also /security, right? So we have 3 of them.
3, yeah.
One's at the door.
One's at the door, and then 2 can go throughout the building,
Okay, so this would be an
in
additional?
addition to that.
2, okay, so.
Yeah.
And then how many SROs do we have
We
up
have
there?
2 at the high school, 1 at the middle school, and 1 that does the elementaries.
2 at the high school. And can
Yep.
you just, because I'm kind of envisioning all of the places that we need them and that we want them to be visible and to help out in all of these type of areas that my committee members are bringing up. The SROs, I know what an SRO is, but at the high school, where are they? I know where their office is. Where, do they go about the building? Like, what do they do when they're there?
So it varies, so typically they're in the office. A lot of times there's kids in the office with them. They're on call at all times. Typically we like to see them, move throughout the building from time to time. We always like at least 1 in the office because we want to make sure that they're called. They have the walkies and things like that, but you'd be surprised at how many kids go to the office just for, touching base, not necessarily counseling, but sort of a person to talk to, questions, things like that. So they're not visible like marching through the hallways, which we don't necessarily want a huge police presence there, but we want that community policing presence so that they're available. And I know that here at the Higgins during lunches and sometimes Officer Colella's talking to kids and things like that. So we would like to see that. We don't manage their time.
Yeah.
Too much. They have some autonomy there, but they're always available. And so, they're primarily stationed at that substation in the office, and, you will see them moving throughout the building during the day.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I mean, they're a valuable resource to our school community.
Absolutely.
And I couldn't imagine without them, but I'm just trying to get a visual on, 2 additional access attendants, which is /security, and then we have our SROs, just utilizing them to the best that we can to make sure that our kids are able to, be in every part of our building safely and comfortable, and everything's open, and I highly, agree and will support adding more access attendants, SROs, whatever we need, just to get everybody safe and comfortable in the building, and so I'm in full support of that, so, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Any other questions at this time? Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, quickly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. You kind of jogged my memory as to what's going on in the budget with your follow-up questions on these additional building access attendants. Kind of a big overview of the budget that we've been presented has a focus on multilingual, polylingual employees, or we're looking to fill positions with people who are capable of communicating in multiple languages. Is that, and I don't even know if we have a job description for a building access attendant. I know that we did, I think it's proposed and hired a multilingual building access attendant here at the Higgins. Is that an area of focus at the high school? And if not, can we make it an area of focus?
Yes, and that would definitely be, something that we would be looking for. It wouldn't be exclusively, something that is, that's the only thing that we're going to hire. We want to make sure that we're bringing in people that can keep our kids safe. But if there is, a Portuguese or Spanish-speaking applicant, that's a huge win for our community. Being able to talk to kids who are newer to our country and newer to our city and speak another language, those relationships, are helpful, that they have a go-to person. One of the access attendants at the high school speaks Spanish. She's wonderful, and I see her in the hallways all the time, talking to kids and really building those relationships. So I think that's very helpful to have. So if, that would be something we would love to see, and I think that's something we can incorporate into the job description as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hockman. Okay, I propose we break today. We do have budget meetings set up for a week from today, May 3rd, and then the following week, May 10th. And then I know we've tentatively scheduled the public hearing on the budget for Tuesday, May 17th. So if there's no objection, we can hold till the next meeting on Tuesday, May 3rd.
Move to recess.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hockman. You've heard the motion, seconded by Mrs. Carpenter. We're all in favor. And now we have executive session. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to move to go into an executive session with the intent to return to public session thereafter. So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. You've heard the motion, seconded by Mr. Swanson. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, I'd like to start our regular school committee meeting. Welcome, everybody. Today is April 26, 2022. We are starting our meeting a little late, 7:49 p.m. We had a budget meeting prior to this as well as executive session. Want to jump right into things, and if we could rise for a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The regular school committee meeting tonight is being broadcast live, as always, on PAT. We're also having our minutes being recorded by our recording secretary, Leanna Harris. And when we get to the section on public participation, if there's anyone that would like to join us through the Facebook platform, please do so, raise your hand, and we will bring you into the meeting. I wanted to dedicate this meeting, and I should have mentioned it during the moment of silence, but we had a very sad occurrence in the city of Peabody. Last week, Gary Lenahan passed away. Gary was a graduate of Peabody High School, I believe 1973, an outstanding student athlete, and represented the city extremely well. Most recently, or very recently, he was a longtime pitching coach for Peabody High School baseball. Left a very positive influence on a number of student athletes here in Peabody. Definitely leaving us too early. Personal friend. I know everybody, almost everybody knew him. I know knows his family. Certainly a sad loss for our community. The services are tomorrow. But I should have mentioned that during the moment of silence. But if we could hold him and his family in your thoughts, that would be appreciated. Very tough loss. Okay. Why don't we go to the minutes? We do have a couple of meeting minutes, April 12th, 2022, our budget meeting, as well as the regular school committee meeting of April 12th. Open that up for discussion or potential motion.
Motion to approve budget meeting minutes of April 12th, 2022.
Second.
Thank you. You've heard the motion for approval of the budget meeting minutes of April 12th, 2022, made by Mrs. Carpenter, seconded by Mrs. Dunn. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Olympia?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Motion to approve regular school committee meeting minutes of April 12th, 2022.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. You've heard the motion for approval of the regular school committee meeting minutes of April 12th, 2022. Motion seconded by Mrs. Dunn. Roll call vote for approval, please.
Mr. Olympia?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Swanson? Yes. Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Terrific, thank you. We have a couple of bills, a couple of warrants to be approved. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Olympio.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 5017 in the amount of $822,499.83 dated April 26, 2022, subject to audit.
Second.
Further motion by Mr. Olympio for approval of warrant number 5017, seconded by Mrs. Carpenter. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Olympia?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 5018 in the amount of $2,961,665.80 dated April 26, 2022, subject to audit.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. You've heard the motion for approval of warrant number 5018, seconded by Mrs. Carpenter. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Olympia?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. We'll go to item 4, continued business. Anything to report today, Mrs. Dunn, on the MSBA Welsh School project?
Just to let everyone know that the project is proceeding as planned. They are still reworking a lot of the details of the project due to changes that have been necessitated by just the economic climate, the increase in materials that are needed, the lead times in materials. So they've changed the phasing in the school. It does not affect the first day or the last day, but it does affect the way that the construction will take place in the school. And Dr. Vidala and Ms. Massa, Principal Massa, are working to make sure, because they have to be able to, position the students and staff throughout this process. So it's very important that they have good information about which area of the school is being worked on, which one will be completed on what date, and what they can expect. So those discussions are still going on. There was what's called an OAC meeting today. It's the OPM, the the architect, and the construction company. They meet every other week to coordinate all of this, but it's just that's the official meeting. They're on together continuously, working on this all together. So we will have a Welsh School Building Committee meeting at the end of May. I'm sorry, I don't have the date on me at the moment, but I can tell you that we are going to have the, yes, I was trying to think, it's not the ribbon cutting, that's at the end. This is the groundbreaking on June 6th, and you'll all be invited to that. So that should be a lot of fun.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Question, Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. Through the chair to Dr. Vidala or Mrs. Dunn, do you know what the status is of the city council taking action that we won't be able to accommodate voting?
Yes, we told them that they won't be able to use the Welsh School this year for voting on either day. They really can't. It's going to be a construction site.
Yeah.
It would be very difficult to accommodate. So
Do you know if they've addressed that issue?
I know that they are actively looking for new locations, and because of state law, those would be considered temporary under emergency provisions because the approved polling place is not available. And because of the construction, that is an acceptable reason that they won't be able to use the school. But I honestly have no idea what they're thinking of or where they're looking. They should get back to us, fairly soon if it's going to involve the schools. It may be other venues. I gave my list of suggestions and just things that I thought of off the top of my head in the ward. I do believe they want to use the gymnasium at the South School for one precinct, but they can't even hold two precincts in that gym. Something, space requirements. So they may use the gym at the South, which they usually did anyway.
Yeah, I think
as
to
far as the
Dr.
other two-
Vidala, I just wanted to make sure they were officially notified.
We haven't put it in writing, but that'd be easy enough to do. Yeah.
They're very much aware of this.
Okay.
They're working on, the
Great.
city clerk, Allison Danforth, and her team are working on some options.
Great, thank you.
Will be a report in progress. Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Whitman.
on that subject, even though it's beyond our purview, this is,
Just hot off the presses. Just a second. No one anticipates being able to use the school during construction. But the Secretary of State recommended something in writing for reference. I just got that message. So the letter will be forthcoming. Yeah.
Mr. Hawk?
yeah, thank you. Just on this subject, again, like I said, even though it's beyond our purview where the election commission is going to hold elections, and I only bring it up because of the district that we're talking about, the part of the city that we're talking about, that we all know the Welsh School community is the highest level of free lunch students. It's the highest level of poverty concentrated within our city. And I believe this is going to be the third change in their polling locations in the last 3 elections. And I worry about people being disenfranchised with voting, and I worry about civil rights and people having the opportunity to express their vote by knowing where to vote, and that may be a difficult task. So maybe I suggest that if we're going to change where these precincts are for this election, we consider making it a permanent change, so that, or whoever is going to make that decision, so we don't continue to bounce this part of the population around in terms of where they're going to vote, because we'd rather have them know where to vote and vote than not. My 2 cents.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Okay, Mr. Amico?
Thank you, through the chair, Mayor, thank you. To Dr. Vidala, maybe at some point we can let the Welsh school community know when we do find out, maybe through a letter or an email through the principal, so they know, in multiple languages, of course. Thank you.
Okay. We'll go now to Superintendent's report. Dr. Vidala, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So our first item is something I'm very excited about. We do have a brief superintendent's report today, but the first one is an appointment of an assistant superintendent. So this position is a position that we've discussed over some time. I know that years ago, this position was in the budget. Peabody had an assistant superintendent for pupil personnel services. It went away due to some tough budget years, and I'm very pleased to say that we are being able to bring this position back, and that the committee is supporting this position. I watched the Bureau, the BESA meeting today, the Board of Education, and 3 superintendents presented talking about the difficulties that staff and students have been having from the pandemic. And this position is really designed to support staff and students, to really round out the needs that we have in terms of mental health, counseling, student support, interventions, and all of these, our candidate, Dr. Mark Higgins, is an expert in these areas. Dr. Higgins started his career as a teacher in the Peabody Public Schools. He became the assistant principal at the South Memorial School, and then he left. He went to Salem Public Schools, and he served as a principal of 2 different schools just over a decade there, and we were fortunate enough to bring him back to the South School as a principal, where he has served for the past 5 years. And I can say that when we posted this position, right off the bat, I immediately thought that Dr. Higgins would be an excellent candidate. He went through an interview process, was the resounding top candidate. His passion for education is palpable. When you're around him, you can feel that he is excited about it. He brings a great culture to the school. I think the only people upset about this are our South School families and our teachers at the South School. It's a little bittersweet for them. They're very happy for this opportunity for Dr. Higgins. Sad to see him go, but they're really excited about the potential for him to be able to come to central office and have an impact on all 6,000 students. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Higgins to the committee. You know him well. Congratulate him and bring him forward to say a few words. But I couldn't be happier to present Dr. Higgins as Assistant Superintendent for Pupil and Personnel Services. Dr. Higgins?
Thank you, Dr. Vidala. Good evening, everyone. I'm very excited about the opportunity to join the district leadership team. Over the past few years, I've been very impressed with the strategic work that Dr. Vidala has brought to the district, and he has a very clear vision of where we go, and I'm really excited about that. Happy to follow along with that. Excuse me. Dr. Chase has done a wonderful job. She's come on board this year, really aligned our work around curriculum, best teaching practices, and has done a wonderful job. So I think I can be a good part of that team going forward. Dr. Vidala said it well. It's being an advocate for the people in the schools, the adults, and most importantly, the students. There are a lot of factors that impact student learning that are outside of the classroom, and those things can be a very positive and enrichment, and quite honestly, can be a struggle. And I know that you've all talked about that. I worked with all of you at different times, and so I think with a lot of collaboration and communication, with lots of shareholders in the district, I think that work can be done and can be done successfully, and I really look forward to that. And so, in closing, I just want to say, I know Dr. Vidala mentioned I came back 5 years ago, and that was the best thing that I ever did. And a big factor in that decision was Karen Mertag. She was a friend of mine, and I really enjoyed working with her. We were just so in sync. We saw things the same way with kids, and so in her memory, I take that responsibility very important, right? Every child, every day, and so in this position, I can honor her memory going forward, and I have to say that because that's the truth. So Thank you, look forward to working with all of you moving forward, and I can talk a lot, but I'll stop right now.
Hey, thank you. Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you, Dr. Higgins. Welcome to your new position. You've been very successful here with us in the district in other positions, and we do recognize that. Thank you for mentioning Kara. You know, that's something that we all hold near and dear, and it's nice to hear her name mentioned, and especially when it comes to building people up and supporting one another. I'm looking over your list of responsibilities that we were given, and you certainly have your work cut out for you, and I think that this is a different time. Things are very different than if you were in this position, say, 3 years ago. And it is outside the realm of education right now. There's a lot of things outside of that, and I think the things that you're going to be responsible for, the transportation, facilities, overseeing, early childhood, 504 coordination, all of these things take on a different meaning, and I'm looking forward to see how you develop those. I have very high expectations for you, and I welcome you to this position, and I look forward to working with you, so congratulations.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Mr. Amico?
Thank you through the chair. Dr. Higgins, welcome and congratulations on your new role. I was part of the interview process, and I agree with Dr. Vidala. You were great in the interview process. You're a parent, you're an educator, and you're a resident of Peabody, and I think those three things are really important. People know who you are. People have trust in you. You've played all the roles. You've been a teacher, you've been a principal, you've been a coach. I'll just share a little bit about your interview process, and one of the questions you just kept on talking about collaboration and teamwork and making everyone part of the process, and that's something that really stuck with me, because that's so important as an educator, so important as a parent, to know that you have someone to call, or someone who will just listen. And I think sometimes, especially with what we're going on in our world today, sometimes you just need someone to listen, and you're a great listener, so I just want to thank you for that. The other part is, about a year ago, we were at a football game, and we were just standing next to each other watching Peabody play. I think it was Salem. I think we were beating up on Salem. And a bunch of kids just came over and just started, talking to you, and they were a bunch of your former fifth graders who are now up at the high school, and it just showed, the relationships that you built with kids over the years. So that's something that's really important to me as well. So thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'll say very briefly, parents are much more interested in my experience as a parent than my educational level, and I think that's important. My children have come up through the schools, and I've had a really positive experience, and I know how things are, and I can be a good resource for them, and someone that's approachable, and it's going to help solve problems, and that's really how I kind of look at it. I appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Amico. Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Higgins, I am very happy that you're with us and that you're moving into this new position. I remember when you came back, how excited people were. And honestly, you just said something that really, really made a lot of sense with why so many people regard you so highly. You say you like to be a resource. And honestly, that's how a lot of people have described, they go to you for advice. And I think that with all the experiences you've had, all of your life experiences, not just the education, with this new position, it's going to be a really great use of all of your resources for everyone involved, the students, the families, the staff. So I'm really, really glad that you step forward to take this position, and I wish you all the best with it. I think you're going to do very well.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Mr. Swanson?
Through you, Dr. Higgins, obviously, congratulations and welcome to the team. We've known each other personally for a bit, and now I'm learning through your professional life. Took a tour with your school the other day, and everything that I'm hearing from these that have known you for a while, I could see that, and I'm excited for what you're going to bring to the leadership, and excited again. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dr. Higgins, a lot of doctors now. Congratulations. I think you're going to be fantastic in this role. I was here when you came back to Peabody, and I've gotten to know you over those years, and a lot of people that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, way back when you came back as the principal of the South School, spoke very, very highly of you, and I understand why. You've done a great job at the South School. You've done a great job here in Peabody. And I expect that you're going to continue with that track record and do a great job as our assistant superintendent. I am, however, and I talked to you prior to this public meeting, I am, however, going to be voting against this position. It's not a vote against you. I'm glad that you're filling the role because it makes me feel a whole lot better about the objectives of this role and that they will be accomplished. So I'm very happy for that. There's just a little philosophical difference that I maintain with limited resources and how we allocate them, and it has nothing at all to do with you personally. So good luck and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mr. Olympio?
Thank you. As a piggyback on what Jared just spoke about, I wish you all the best. I hear nothing but great things. I've known you a little bit. You bring a lot to the table, but it's just a difference of professional opinion. But certainly look forward to working with you. And again, I will be, voting no. But again, nothing personal, nothing professional. Just hear all great things. But certainly, I'm looking forward to working with you and what you bring to the table. Thank you.
I have very thick skin, both figuratively and literally. So I do appreciate that feedback, though. Thank you both.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion? I'd like to make a motion for us. I'll make it.
I'd like to make a motion that we follow the recommendation of the superintendent and hire Dr. Mark Higgins as our new Assistant Superintendent of Pupil Personnel Services. So moved.
Great. You've heard the motion by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Swanson. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Olympio?
No.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
No.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Dr. Higgins. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, can we take 2 minutes?
Okay, we'd like to call the meeting back to order. And Turn it back to you, Dr. Vidal. I know we have some remaining items on your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the next item is the school calendar. I know we've presented this once before. It is in your packet. The teacher first report day is August 23rd. First day of school for grades 1 through 12 would be August 29th. And the first day for pre-K is following the Labor Day holiday, so it would be Tuesday, September 6th. Pre-K and K would start. Last day of school, June 15th, 2023 for next year, and if we had the 5 snow days, it would be June 22nd. So that is sort of an overview of the calendar. If there are any questions, if not, we could entertain a vote to approve the school year 2022-23 school calendar, which is in your packet. This is the second time we've brought it to the committee. No major changes.
Thank you, Dr. Vidal. Open it up for discussion. Mr. Amico?
Thank you. Through the chair to Dr. Vidal, I think we ask the same question every year. Has Marge Macarelli checked this and double-checked this?
She is in full support of this. She's in charge of making sure that the colors are correct and the number of days are accurate.
Then I'm good, and I just wanted to just say thank you to Ms. Macarelli for all the hard work that she does. She's awesome. Thank you.
Very true. Thank you, Mr. Amico. Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is about the September 6th start for pre-K and kindergarten, kindergarten first day. And it's just that is a primary election date, and I know that some of the schools may be used as polling places. If there is a determination made about that date, would we be able to have time to adjust the calendar or to do something, whether it's to notify the public that that is the first day so they can be aware of the parking situations at the schools? I'm just thinking of, it's usually a confusing day for a lot of people, and it might be difficult.
Yeah, so that's something we could definitely look at. I know there's a lot more foot traffic that day, a lot of people physically dropping off
Yeah.
for kindergarten and pre-K. I know in years past, there was a time when they did it on that last day. It was a one-day week, basically. So they did it on Thursday, September 1st. I knew we do a lot of kindergarten screening, so why don't we bring that back to the team, and we'll take a look at what we have. We would like them to start. That is the 5th day of school overall, so we would like to get them to start. I know in some years, we've started them before Labor Day, but that's an earlier start time than they're typically used to. So,
Yeah.
but we'll look at it.
Even if it were, one day later, I don't mean to disrupt the flow, but I know it can be a problem with traffic.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Ms. Dunn on that one day. I think the administration is capable of figuring out whether it's going to be Thursday the 1st that we start kindergarten, or if it's going to be Wednesday the 7th. Everything else looks okay with me, so I'm going to make a vote. And I think people want to know. People need to plan. Both our staff and our parents and students need to plan. So I'm going to make a vote that we adopt the school year 2022-2023 calendar as presented, with the understanding that kindergarten will not start on September 6th. So moved.
Second.
Okay, you've heard the motion by Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mrs. Dunn. On the motion, please, roll call.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And we will adjust that date accordingly, depending on, where the staff lands, and we'll make sure we flesh it out, make a good decision on that, and we'll get that out to the public as soon as possible. Thank you. The next item is a very important item, and it's not 100% solidified yet, but I wanted to bring it out because it's an important piece where advocacy is needed and I think warranted. So we've talked a lot about universal free lunch and what would it take in order for us to do that in Peabody. And as an outlier, one district would be fiscally very challenging for us. However, the House Ways and Means Committee just released their budget on April 13th. It is going to debate this week, and the House budget will be finalized hopefully soon. And in the House budget is $110 million for universal free meals for all students next year. So this is something that we would like to get some advocacy out to our state reps and then eventually to our senators. If the House budget passes and goes to Senate Ways and Means, we want to make sure we're pushing as much advocacy in this area to make sure it stays in the budget, because this is very important for our families. So the budget's far from over, but this is a huge step forward. It was not in the governor's budget, but it is in the House Ways and Means. So Massachusetts is again leading the way in making sure all kids get free lunch next year. And the federal government has taken that away, but Massachusetts has stepped up. So I know this is something that the committee has talked about quite a bit, and so I'm pleased to announce this major move on behalf of the House Ways and Means Committee. And I'll keep you updated, but any advocacy on your end would be appreciated as well.
Mr. Swanson.
Thank you. Through you to Dr. Vidala. Quick question for educational purposes. Universal free lunch, obviously support that. How is that allocated to us? Is that a budget per student, or is it a reimbursement type program?
It's a reimbursement program, so we claim the number of lunches that we provide, and then based on the student's designation, whether they're free, reduced, or paid, we receive a specific allocation based on that. So for this, the universal free lunch, we could use a clicker system and we get a reimbursement based on the percentages that we have, or we can do it based on the actuals. And so I would move forward next year looking at actuals because the anticipation is that a greater percentage of kids who receive free and reduced lunch actually take free and reduced lunch. So if 100 kids took it, we'd want the accurate number as opposed to the clicker system. But we do receive different reimbursement based on the designation of each student. So, it's important for us to have accurate numbers, but it's also important for us to make sure that we're providing as much lunch and breakfast to kids as possible.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that knowledge.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Okay, Mrs. Dunn?
If we could we take something out of order? In our packet, we do have the two letters. I prepared one for the federal legislators, our delegation, and then one for state. They're basically the same language, encouraging our legislators, whether federal or state, to support the legislation before them, requiring that school meals be reimbursable and that the universal free school meal program continue, however they are able to do it. That would be, further encouragement so that people know where we stand. The letters are in our packet. They're open if anybody needed to change them or anything, but if they are okay as you see them, I would be willing to make a motion that we approve those and that they be mailed out.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. I thought they were very well written.
Thank you.
Great job. So, yeah, unless there's any comments, I would ask that you make a motion to receive or not motion to send those out on our behalf.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that letters in our, prepared in our school committee packet be sent to President Joseph Biden, Senator Edward Markey, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Representative Seth Moulton, to Governor Charlie Baker, Senator Joan Lovely, Representative Tom Walsh, and Representative Sally Cairns, encouraging and requesting their support of universal free school meals programs. So moved.
Second.
Further motion by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Hockman. All in favor? That's a vote.
Excellent, thank you all. So the last item is we are very excited to be bringing back our in-person events fully. I know last year we did have a full graduation. It was a little tenuous at the end, whether it was going to happen or not. But now we are going back to a Friday night graduation. We're going back to full in-person ceremonies at the end, and I'm really excited about that. So I wanted to share with the committee and with the public the dates for those ceremonies. So Peabody Learning Academy has their own graduation ceremony, and then they attend the high school graduation at the stadium as well. So the their graduation ceremony at the North Shore Mall will be on Friday, May 27th at 11 a.m. Peabody Prep will be hosting a graduation at the Black Box Theater, which will be a great event on Tuesday, May 31st at 6 p.m. for their graduates. And then all of the high school students will be able to, if they choose, participate in convocation on Thursday, June 2nd at 6 p.m., and the high school graduation for all Peabody students on Friday, June 3rd at 5 p.m. In addition, the Higgins has their moving on ceremonies on June 15th and 16th. They do that by cluster, so the 8th grade moving on ceremonies will be over 2 days. And then our 5th grade moving on ceremonies, Monday, June 13th at Center, Welch, and McCarthy. We spread it up. We spread out the times. The times are in your packet as well, in case you did want to attend those. I do enjoy going to each one of these. Tuesday, June 14th, Flag Day, also my wedding anniversary, is the Brown, West, and the South. So very excited for 5th grader Addison Vidala to be moving on our anniversary, so we're very excited about that. Wednesday, June 15th, we'll have the Burke, and the last day of school, Friday, June 17th, will be the Carol. So those are our moving on ceremonies. We're very excited about having the in-person events. Peabody TV will be broadcasting a number of our events, as well as we're excited about our field days and our other end-of-year activities. So with that, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Vidala. On the report, Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. Through the chair, Dr. Vidala. Are these posted on our website? These are big dates people like to plan for.
Yes, our elementary school principals and middle school principals have started sharing the dates, but we'll also get this, wanted to present it to you first, and then tomorrow morning, this will be live on our website as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mr. Hockman?
2 quick questions, Dr. Vidala. One, can you please include or get us the date for the community high school graduation or graduation ceremony? And secondly, convocation, are we going to be outdoors this year or indoors, or do we have any plans that you know about? We could learn about that later.
Let me get back to you on that. I know that they are planning a similar event to last year with the same schedule, but it'll be Thursday this year, so at 6 p.m. I'll double check if it's in the auditorium or if it's on the field, as it was last year, and I'll get back to the committee.
Okay, we'll go to public participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forward and speak? Seeing no one, do we have anybody on Facebook? Okay. We do have one written communication this evening, North Shore Education Consortium fiscal year 23 approved budget. I'd open that up for
Motion to receive.
Second?
further motion by Mr. Hockman to receive, seconded by Mrs. Dunn. All in favor, that's a unanimous vote. Subcommittee reports. Education Subcommittee, Mr. Miko.
Nothing to report at this time.
Finance Subcommittee, Mr. Olympio.
Nothing new to report.
School Safety,
We
Mr.
met-
Olympio.
Just that we met prior to this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Athletics and Wellness, Mr.
Um,
Hockman.
The committee met before, earlier tonight. I wasn't present. I was stuck in traffic. I don't know if Dr. Vidala has a,
Just quickly, we did meet, we looked at a draft of a wellness policy that we'll meet one more time to finalize and then present to the committee. And I am pleased to announce that the baseball field lights have been worked on, and they replaced 240 bulbs, so they should be ready to go. And I know this might be facilities as well, but the high school lighting has also, that issue has also been resolved. So I'm pleased to announce both of those things.
A lot of bulbs. All right, thank you, Mr. Hockman. Quality and Standards, Mrs. Dunn.
You caught me midway between thinking of the question I wanted to ask on the last topic, I'm sorry. Quality and standards, nothing to report, but we do have to have a meeting soon because we've got some policies that we really do need to address.
Okay.
So,
Parent and Student Advisory Boards, Mrs. Dunn.
nothing to report, other than the fact that our students are being invited to the May 14th presentation for student representatives that is being put on by MASC, and it will take place at Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School, and they will all be invited to attend.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Building and Grounds,
we have a meeting scheduled for 5:30 tomorrow here at the Higgins.
Special Education Parent Advisory Board, Mr. Olympio.
Nothing to report.
City Council and Legislative Delegation,
Nothing to
Mrs.
report.
Carpenter. And redistricting subcommittee?
We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow at 6:30 here at the Higgins.
Terrific, thank you. Okay, under new business, we already did take a couple of items, but we have our first item, Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School update. Mrs. Carpenter, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to put this on the agenda. A couple of reasons. First of all, I want to congratulate all of our Peabody students who were recently selected to attend this school. It's an amazing opportunity. I know that letters had gone out just before April vacation, and there was a lot of excited families, and I just want to say congratulations. But in the same breath, I'd also like to talk about, one, how many applied, how many were accepted, and what the process is. I know that there were a tremendous amount of applicants, and I'm sure it was a very difficult decision. And I did receive a lot of phone calls and a lot of questions regarding the process. So I did ask for it to be included in our packet, and if the public would like to view it, they can see that online. But just a brief overview, there is a scoring system in regards to scholastic achievement, attendance, school discipline, recommendation forms, and an interview. So there's that whole scoring system. So I know there was a little bit of question about that. But I would like to ask Dr. Valdala, do you have the numbers and the figures as to how many applied, how many?
So those are in our packet. It's the last page before the letters to President Biden. So we don't get these numbers until after the fact. I did request them from Dr. Riccio, which she graciously provided them for us. But also Ms. Dunn was very graciously put this packet together for us. The one challenge on our end is we don't have much to do with this from the school district. Any student can apply. However, we as a school district don't have really any per se stake in this, rather except for our guidance counselors do put the recommendations forth for the 8th grade students.
Thank you. I did want to get that out there. We don't have any say in this at all. It's a wonderful opportunity for our Peabody students. We also have, technical vocational programs at our high school. But I did want to put it out there because I think there was a lot of questions as to how the process is done. Mrs. Dunn, I know that you do have some insight on that, and I did want it to be in our public record. People could look it up and understand how the kids are selected.
Sure, I would be happy to explain some of it and answer any questions. What you have in front of you is the actual admissions policy and process. And at Essex North Shore, an additional document that they have, if you look second to the last page, this is admission frequently asked questions for middle school families. And these go out and are posted in all the middle schools in the sending area. And it does give a good description of the dates and what needs to take place on those certain dates with deadlines for applications, the open house. There is a huge, big process that people can go through when they want to find out about the school. Then, after the applications are submitted, they are tracked, and what you can see, as Dr. Vidal said on that last page, that chart, they will break it down by community and by school. This is tentative, though, because up until April 29th, students have the ability to respond. So if a student has already received their acceptance, they have the ability to decide to follow through with that acceptance or to decline it. They also may be put on a waiting list, and if they are, students are able to appeal that, and students are able to appeal a denial of admission. And they have a whole process for that. So these numbers, as you can see, basically 277 students submitted applications. 109 are a conditional acceptance. This was as of Friday when I sent this list in to you. And then the column that says withdrawn, those applications that are withdrawn prior to acceptance. So 277 applications were put in, but prior to the actual acceptance decision, 14 had already withdrawn from the process. There may be others who will withdraw, and basically that's declining their admission or deciding they do not want to stay on a waiting list. So after April 29th, I can come forward again to you with more accurate numbers of definitive numbers for this year's acceptance process. The actual process, well, the actual policy and process has been vetted really very, very closely. It's been approved by the school committee, the Essex North Shore School Committee back last November, and it will be submitted this year in November for DESE approval. What they're doing is they are following what we have recommended, which is in front of you, and this was all done in light of the fact that many people across the state, different schools have different admissions policies. Essex North Shore has a very, very good policy that actually follows closely with the DESE recommendation. Some communities want a lottery. Some schools do have a somewhat of a lottery when they select children. But Essex North Shore is one of the only ones who has such an extensive process where they go out, they actually interview every single student who applies, which this year was, I believe, over 1,500. And they go to the schools to interview those students. So there are the 17 sending communities, which, of course, Peabody is the largest, and then students from 53 communities attend Essex North Shore. There is a separate criteria for anyone who's selecting agricultural courses, and that's very specific. The students who apply for that admission are accounted for in the numbers, in the overall numbers, but then there will be a very distinct enrollment under agriculture, because the way that vocational school admissions work is that you are allowed to go, if you get accepted, to whichever school offers the program that you want to take. So if your regional school does not offer a program that you're interested in, you are able to apply. You may find people that you know that apply to Minuteman or Whittier. Those applications are because whatever that student wants to take is not offered at Essex North Shore. But Essex North Shore is unique because it's agricultural programs too. And so that draws people from, quite a distance. So I'm glad to answer any questions. If I don't know the answer, I'll get the answer for you from Dr. Riccio.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. That was a lot of information. Thank you, very helpful. Some questions, Mr.
Great.
Amico?
Thank you. Through the chair to Ms. Dunn. Thank you for that report. That was great. I had a question. What if a student was waitlisted, and you had mentioned that 17 had already pulled out of the process? Now I'd imagine where kids may decide to go to other schools or pull out. How are those waitlisted students, do they actually have to reapply, or are they
No.
contacted? Is that how it?
They are contacted by the school. There's a list, and I will be honest, they keep the school committee far away from this process.
Yeah, sure.
They don't want any of us involved in it. So I honestly do not know how they determine who to pull from that wait list. I believe it is by interest and program. But I will find out how they do that. Dr. Vidala, do you know how have you heard?
If I may, I did ask Dr. Riccio
Okay.
this question, and so the seats in Peabody, for example, are not Peabody
Right.
seats. So if a student from Peabody declines their acceptance, it would go to anyone on the wait list. But also, if someone from another community, if all the students from Peabody accepted their spot, another community student could go to a Peabody student. So they do have sort of a rank order of the kids, and they pull them off based on the programs that they selected. So the seats are not dedicated to any community. When a seat opens up, it goes to anyone on the wait list, depending on the criteria that they've set. Cool.
Yeah, yep, and they're very careful about it too, because they know how important this is to people, so they have great communications with the accepted students and with the waitlisted people. They also, on their website, they have all of these documents. These are all public documents, they can all see them on the website, just go to the admissions link. But they also have a staff person who is dedicated to answering people's questions and explaining the process, and they're highlighted that if you have a question, you can contact this person. It's also in the letter that goes out to each student. People wonder whether they should stay on the wait list, and I always say yes, because a lot of students make a different decision. They may be accepted to Essex North Shore plus to another school. And sometimes they decide they want to stay at PVMHS. So there are a million reasons of what someone is thinking of when they accept. That's why it's tentative numbers. There is still time for people. They do have to make a decision, but there will be more seats opening up as people decide not to attend for whatever their own personal reasons are. And then you will see these numbers changing, daily, hourly, and then they have their final one. And I've also told people that people can be pulled from that wait list right up until school starts. So sometimes over the summer, people might decide not to go, and then there may be a seat open, and your student could be the next one on that waiting list. So it's a really, really thoughtful process. It really is.
Thank you. Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. Through the chair to Dr. Vidala, I just want to make sure I'm asking the right person. You prepared this chart with the student application numbers, right?
No, I believe that was Ms. Dunn, or
You got
that came right from Essex.
Right, I requested this. This document right here that we have, it is not on the website yet because of the constant changes to it. But if anyone wanted to, they can go to the Essex North Shore website. They can look at last year's charts. They can see the information for the class of 2025. That's all available on a dashboard. So these numbers aren't out yet. As I say, they're not definite, but on the website you can see and get an idea of what they look at, from last year, because the numbers per community change too. Some communities go up, some go down on their applications, on acceptances. It's just the way that it comes out.
And that's really my question about the communities. Just to clarify, so when people are looking at this, 1,500 students applied, but that's not freshmen. That's throughout. That's 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th.
No, actually, it's the majority of freshmen. There may be some sophomores. I don't know about juniors and seniors.
Well, I'm just looking at the chart, and it shows what is all middle schools in all the
Right.
communities.
These are all Peabody residents that attend these
That's
schools.
what I was trying to figure
Yes,
out.
these are all Peabody residents that attend these schools. The Higgins ones are currently Peabody Public School
Okay.
students.
So I was going to say, are you telling me only 3 people applied in Beverly? Like, I wanted to try to figure out
3
this
Peabody
chart.
residents who attend Beverly Middle
These are all
School.
Peabody residents.
All,
Okay.
these
Yes,
are all
I'm
Peabody
sorry.
residents
Okay.
who attend
I
different
should have
I
middle
needed
made
to
I should've put a
clarify this
title on
chart.
it.
So out of Peabody, 277 students applied for our freshman class.
Yes.
277 residents of Peabody,
Residents of
243 Peabody Public School students that
Yes,
attend the
from the
Higgins Middle
Higgins,
School. So
right.
243 of our enrolled students, 277 of our residents.
Yep, so 277 Peabody residents applied, 109 were accepted. Okay, that's what I was trying to get at. No, this is good information. No,
No, I just wanted to correct one thing. It is 277 residents.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. 277, yep.
Right,
243 were from the Higgins,
right.
yes. Well, it's a wonderful opportunity, so I congratulate everyone that was accepted. I hope some of the waitlist kids get in, and if anybody has any more questions, we have it all there in our packet as well. Thank you, Mrs. Dunn.
And I'd be glad to bring any types of reports that you need forward. It's a very open process as far as the numbers, as far as how people are selected, and they try to be as transparent as possible with the entire process.
Thank you, good information. Okay, our next meetings are, we have a budget meeting set up for a week from today, Tuesday, May 3rd. Our next regular school committee meeting is Tuesday, May 10th. Items for that agenda will be handled in the regular course of business, and motion to adjourn. Thank you, everyone.